Well, Attorney General Pam Bondi is hitting the ground running. Shortly after being sworn in, the Justice Department filed a lawsuit today against Chicago, Cook County, and the state of Illinois over so-called sanctuary laws. The suit cites specific laws and ordinances which prosecutors say obstruct law immigration enforcement, including the city of Chicago's Welcoming City Ordinance of 2012 and the Illinois Trust Act of 2017. Bondi reportedly warned these are only the first of many lawsuits to come. Attorney General Pam Bondi establishes a new workforce to investigate past instances of politicized justice. Here's One America's Daniel Baldwin.
Jack Smith, Alvin Bragg, and Tish James are officially on the hot seat. Newly minted Attorney General Pam Bondi established the quote-unquote weaponization working group to review the activities of all law enforcement agencies over the past 4 years to identify instances of politicized justice. Paul Kavanaugh joins me in studio from the National Legal and Policy Center. Sir, this is something that President Trump promised on the campaign trail. It's an executive order that he signed immediately when he was inaugurated as the 47th president to end weaponized justice. Is this a good start to fulfilling that promise?
Absolutely. Everybody's saying, well, wait a minute. We didn't think he was going to seek retribution, but that's different from looking at what happened during Merrick Garland's reign and the weaponization in order to hold those people accountable. So this is well deserved. Pam Bondi is the person to do this. She's got a great staff with Todd Blanche as her deputy. You got Kash Patel coming in there already. A lot of them have been fired or left because they see the writing on the wall, but they need to go back and look at all this politicization that went in with the prosecution of Trump, not only Jack Smith, but as you said earlier, with respect to Alvin Bragg, Fani Willis, because they were coordinating with the Justice Department, and they need to see whether or not, and investigate whether there was basically a political agenda going on there rather than a fair administration of justice.
Well, Paul, not just those individuals, the director of orders, the working group to examine improper investigative tactics and unethical prosecutions related to the J6ers, the January 2023 FBI memo that suggested Catholic religion practices were affiliated with violent extremism.
Absolutely.
And then the criminal prosecutions under the FACE Act that happened under the Biden administration. And you mentioned people thought that Trump wasn't going to seek retribution. Is it really retribution if injustices actually happened with these instances?
No, I mean, you first have to investigate it, okay? They're not retribution in terms of going after anybody who's a Democrat or what have you, which the left likes to say. No, it's well-needed purpose of the new Attorney General to see what went on and to root out that kind of culture that went on in the Justice Department and get rid of those people, because they're there to support the agenda for Donald Trump, and we got to make sure that people are on board on that, or whether they harbor secret animosities like we learned from the first term in office, where you had Lisa Page and Strzok, who had these emails going about, hey, we've got a way to get rid of Trump even though he was elected. With the Russia hoax, as you know. Of
course. For a long time, people have bemoaned the fact that instances like these, where there have been alleged political injustices, individuals have faced no accountability for actions. Do you think this is the start towards a pathway to accountability?
Yeah, I think it is. And in terms of the other examples, besides the ones you mentioned, don't forget they were also going after parents at school board meetings and calling domestic terrorists because they want to question what is this garbage that they're teaching their children. So that kind of weaponization of the Justice Department has to be rooted out. And I think Pam Bondi is the person to do it. And I think they're going to finally root this out and start a new chapter where the Justice Department will go after the real criminals, go after the drug dealers, and not have this political agenda.
Paul, we appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, sir.
Well, the Senate Judiciary Committee is set to vote on whether to advance Kash Patel's nomination as FBI director to the full floor as early as next week. During the panel's meeting today, Democrats moved to delay the committee's vote. They had asked for another hearing with Patel, but Chairman Chuck Grassley said the first hearing, which lasted over 5 hours, was sufficient. The committee has 12 Republicans and 10 Democrats, and Patel needs a simple majority to advance. Once in the full Senate, lawmakers will debate Patel's nomination before voting. Well, Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove gives some clarity on the probe into FBI agents involved with January 6th investigations. In a memo sent to the agency on Wednesday, Bove said that he will only be targeting agents who acted with corrupt or partisan intent. He added any employee who followed orders and acted ethically is not at risk of termination or penalty. This comes after the DOJ requested a list of agents who were assigned to the January 6th cases. President Donald Trump says he's getting the, quote, woke lunacy out of key spaces in America. Here's One America's Katie Smith.
Sign a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports. It's about time.
The 47th president continues to return the United States to common sense. Wednesday, President Donald Trump signed an executive order to keep men out of women's sports, undoing the years of Democrats erasing basic biology.
So in recent years, the radical left has waged an all-out campaign to erase the very concept of biological sex and replace it with a militant transgender ideology. You've heard a little bit about this, haven't you, huh? Just a little bit? Does anybody agree with them? No. Would be not a good thing to say yes right here.
The president stressed the amount of men stealing from women in their vulnerable spaces.
Female athletes have been forced onto the front lines, and men claiming to be girls have stolen more than 3,500 victories. That's a lot. And invaded more than 11,000 competitions designed for women.
And Trump assured he will defend women's sports.
Under the Trump administration, we will defend the proud tradition of female athletes, and we will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
Trump announced his return to office has bolstered many other areas hindered by the previous administration.
2 years of shrinking force numbers at levels that nobody has ever seen before. 4 years of this we went through, and missed recruiting targets every single month. It was just announced that in December, the U.S. Army had its single best recruitment in more than 15 years.
The president said this is clear proof that the spirit of the nation that has been missing for years is back. And in less than 3 weeks in office, he touted his administration's swift actions.
We've gotten the woke lunacy out of our military. And now we're, very importantly, getting it out of women's sports.
Katie Smith, One America News.
Well, President Donald Trump appears to take aim at the U.S. Agency for International Development. In a True Social post today, Trump said the U.S. aid and other agencies stole billions of dollars to pay fake media news outlets for creating, quote, good stories about Democrats. This comes after the White House announced Wednesday it is canceling $8 million in U.S. funds worth of political subscriptions. The president went on to question which other outlets may have received funding, calling this the biggest scandal of them all. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is now reportedly the acting director of the National Archives. According to ABC News on Wednesday, Rubio has been serving in the role since shortly after Trump's inauguration last month. The position has previously been filled by the Biden appointee Colleen Shogan, who Trump has wanted to replace shortly over her suspected efforts to aid past investigations against him. However, neither the archives nor the administration have confirmed the move. Rubio is also serving as acting chief of the United States Agency for International Development as the administration works to downsize and reform the agency. GOP lawmakers give their thoughts on President Trump's executive order to disband and reorganize U.S. aid within the State Department. Here's One America's John Hines.
Sir, what do you think of these changes at USAID?
I think it's long overdue. What they're spending money on all kinds of ridiculous. You've all heard the examples. The one that sticks out to me is they were paying for Sesame Street to be on in Iraq. Meanwhile, China is like building roads and bridges in countries, and we're paying for Big Bird and Bert and Ernie and Baghdad. So I think it's just ridiculous waste of money. Elon.
Meanwhile, your Democratic colleagues were down protesting, defending this agency en masse.
I mean, it's just the left. I think our office, we were looking at approximately 10,000 people work at USAID. In November 23, 1 month after Hamas attacked our best friend in the state of Israel, 1,000 of those 10,000 employees signed a letter saying there should be a ceasefire. So that's the mindset there, and they're spending money, taxpayer money, on ridiculous things. I think the American people appreciate the effort that Elon's leading and trying to say, no, we shouldn't be spending taxpayer dollars in this manner.
It is accountability. When we don't know where the money's going, I think the taxpayers should know where every dime goes. I sit on foreign affairs, and it's amazing what they don't know. They don't have a database of where the money goes. They don't do an audit. The money goes out the door. They had Samantha Powers running it. So accountability, 100%. We should not be giving money unless we know that money is going, and that money needs to be driven by our policy. But when it's all over the map and you're flushing money out, and a lot of this money goes to warehouses that then redistribute. So all stop, in my opinion, Trump is exactly right until we get a handle on where the money's going. I think the taxpayers deserve that.
Do you think your Democratic colleagues are a little bit out of touch in defending this agency so vociferously?
Well, they're out of touch in a lot of things. They're out of touch on the border. They're out of touch on money. So they're out of touch with the American people. So I think at the end of the day, we're exactly right. Accountability. Let's have the debate of where the money should be going and not where the money goes on the side streets through these warehouses and without accountability.
Thoughts on the changes at USAID?
Yes, I have absolute faith in Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He will take over the efforts, and the wonderful programs they do have will be continued and restored, and then the ones that need to be eliminated, I have absolute faith in Marco Rubio.
Are you surprised that some of your Democratic colleagues are defending this agency so vociferously?
It's lunacy. And the American people need to see the riot or demonstration or press conference, whatever they want to call it, these are members of Congress and Senate, House and Senate. And this needs to be widely seen by the American people, how irresponsible and called for violence that they made, aside from the idiocy and the insanity and the depravity. And hey, it's clear. The Democratic Party is suffering from Trump derangement, and every day it shows up. But the bottom line, we're going to be positive to protect the American taxpayers and protect the American people.
I think it's pretty alarming, some of the things that I've been learning about USAID. When I look at some of the programs they've been funding, I think they're outlandish and ridiculous, and I don't think the American people, as they found out what USAID is doing, is supportive of their tax dollars going to many of those programs.
Changes at USAID, your thoughts?
Well, look, it's historically been a very bloated bureaucratic agency that is not necessarily putting the interests of this country first, and we need a foreign policy agenda that is going to be in line with that of President Trump and the new Republican Congress.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Still to come on One American News, a manhunt is currently underway. Police in Maine released the identity of the suspect in connection with a mall shooting, which left one person injured. South Portland police say Ahmed Bashir Awad is wanted on a felony charge of elevated aggravated assault. He is accused of firing several shots in the Maine Mall in South Portland Wednesday, hitting one person in the leg. Police say the victim underwent surgery and is expected to survive. The shooting prompted a massive police response and evacuations as police searched for the suspect. Police say Awad left through the food court and fled, that is, in a silver four-door sedan.
We're not sure that he's even in the state of Maine. We're still conducting a thorough search and using our forensic tools to find out where he is and locate him.
Police say the shooting was in an isolated incident. The suspect is considered armed and dangerous. Anyone who spots him should contact police right away. A suspect is taken into custody after a shooting in New Albany, Ohio. Take a look.
A short manhunt for a suspect believed to have carried out a shooting in New Albany, Ohio, comes to an end. On Wednesday, police announced the arrest of 28-year-old Bruce Reginald Foster, who is alleged to have shot multiple people inside of a KDC Cosmetics warehouse Tuesday night. The shooting resulted in one person being killed and 5 more being hospitalized. Officials said they took Foster into custody after cornering him at an apartment complex.
Our team had to enter the apartment, locate him in the apartment. He again resisted commands, would not show his hands, would not do what he was told, would not lay down, put his hands behind his back, and a taser was deployed so that he could safely be taken into custody.
Additionally, police said there was a point of contact between Foster and one of the victims, but maintained they are still working to determine a motive.
We also asked them about motive and maybe what's behind this. Nobody had reported that there was any conflict or that he was in trouble at work, so there was really no apparent motive at the time. Since then, now that we're learning more information and we're having a chance to talk to the suspect, that we are continuing to try to develop what the motive was.
Foster has been charged with aggravated murder.
The Coast Guard is searching for a member who's gone missing off the Pacific coast of Mexico near the border of Guatemala. On Wednesday, Coast Guard said an unidentified guardsman was reported unaccounted for aboard the CGC Washi while operating in the eastern Pacific Ocean. It's unclear when the guardsman was discovered missing. The vessel helicopter and surveillance drones are conducting search patterns in the area. Additional Coast Guard and interagency assets are being employed in the effort. Well, helicopters and airplanes are no longer allowed to share airspace over the Potomac River near Reagan Washington National Airport. The FAA issued new restrictions this week following the deadly midair collision between an Army Black Hawk helicopter and American Airlines plane. During a speech in Washington, D.C. Wednesday, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said these measures will secure the airspace and ensure safety. Duffy also promised to reform air traffic control policies and update outdated systems.
We can fly training missions at a different time of night. And if we have generals who are flying in helicopters for convenience through this airspace, that's not acceptable. Get in a damn Suburban and drive. You don't need to take a helicopter. We need a whole upgrade of the airspace.
Duffy said safety is the DOT's core mission, and he pledged to partner with states to improve transportation networks. Well, law enforcement provides an update to a triple murder and arson investigation in Cypress, Texas. Here's One America's Michelangelo with the latest.
3 lives were taken for no reason. My 4'6", 82-pound daughter was shot to death for no reason. Her boyfriend was shot to death and his mother was shot to death. And there is somebody evil out there walking around.
Law enforcement officials ramp up their investigation into a triple homicide and arson case in Cypress, Texas. During a press conference this week, the FBI and the Harris County Sheriff's Office released new surveillance footage from August 18, 2024, the morning of the crime. The footage shows an unidentified male suspect approaching the home where he is believed to have shot 54-year-old Kelly Masciarelli, her son Colin Foster, and Foster's girlfriend Cameron Richard multiple times in their sleep before setting the house on fire to destroy the evidence. Along with the footage, authorities asked for the public's assistance and announced having increased the reward for help in solving the murders.
The egregious and violent nature of Kelly, Colin, and Cameron's murders have led us to offer up to a $25,000 reward for information leading to the identification and arrest of those responsible. Someone knows something about what happened on the night of August 18, 2024. Someone has information that can help our investigators solve this case. We need that person to come forward.
According to investigators, the suspect is believed to have fled the scene in a dark-colored 4-door sedan with chrome rims, a chrome emblem, and a chrome grille. Detectives also noted the car had a third brake light in the lower portion of the rear window. Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez called the act of violence senseless and devastating, adding how it shattered a family and left the community reeling. He also had a message for the public and the perpetrators responsible.
To the perpetrators, you cannot hide. We will find you. The families deserve closure, and our community deserves to be safe. Together, we will bring these criminals to justice and honor the memory of those we have lost.
Michelangelo, One America News.
The Department of Agriculture confirms a new strain of bird flu in dairy cattle. In a press release Wednesday, the USDA's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service Department saying that the D1.1 genotype was found in dairy cattle on a farm in Nevada. This is the first detection of this strain in dairy cattle, as it's been primarily seen in wild birds and poultry. The D1.1 strain is the same strand that is linked to bird flu-related deaths in the U.S. A House committee in Missouri begins hearing arguments on whether to ban abortion rights that were passed under State Amendment 3. Here's One America's McKenna Blackman.
After reversing a near-total abortion ban, some Missouri lawmakers are looking to get to the root of what they call the system to put abortion on the ballot. Earlier this week, lawmakers considered two bills related to reforming the legislative process, while hearing proposals to bring back the near-total ban.
We need to be fair to the voters of Missouri so they know what they're signing and they know what they're voting on.
The proposed resolution would remove provisions within the state's Amendment 3, which allows abortion in cases of rape, incest, and medical emergencies. According to state law, for a woman to receive an abortion in the Show Me state, they would have to produce documentation that rape or incest was reported to law enforcement and be no more than 12 weeks pregnant. State House Minority Leader Ashley Allen pressed for a further easing of the remaining restrictions, arguing the 12-week deadline is too constrictive.
12 weeks is simply not grace or empathy for survivors.
5 members of the House Children and Families Committee were in approval of the proposed changes to Amendment 3, while 45 voiced opposition. The resolution also addresses transgender care in the state, barring trans youth from gender-changing treatments. Missourians passed Amendment 3 on November 5th with 51.6% of the vote approving the abortion legislation. A press release from the Missouri Life PAC argued against Amendment 3, writing, in addition to maintaining abortion as a right, the legislation also removes critical safeguards for women's well-being, with vague wording and fewer safety standards. Missouri is forecasted to hold their next general election in 2026. However, the governor could call for a special election to vote earlier. McKenna Blackman, One America News.
Congressional Republicans introduced the Bowser Act, named after the mayor of Washington, D.C., seeking to repeal some rules for the federal district. Today, Senator Mike Lee and Representative Andy Ogles introduced the act, which would hand control of D.C. back to Congress, where it's constitutionally designated. The Republicans said that home rule has proven to be a failure, as the district has become a cesspool of crime, homelessness, and other failed Democrat policies. This, as Representative Andrew Clyde has called for the paving over of Black Lives Matter Plaza imposed by D.C.'s Democrat leadership back in 2020. Additionally, President Donald Trump has expressed openness to repealing the home rule. Still to come, on One American News, Marco Rubio appears to snub the G20 summit, saying they're actively working against American values. Why he's skipping this year's conference. And Congress could ban the use of DeepSeek on government devices. What sparked renewed concerns?
Still rely upon today. This is Your History News.
Well, lawmakers are moving to ban Chinese AI tool DeepSeek from government devices. Representative Josh Gothmeier introduced the No DeepSeek on Government Devices Act today. It would require the Office of Management and Budget to develop guidelines within 60 days for the removal of DeepSeek from federal technologies. There are carve-outs for law enforcement and national security-related activity. This comes after reports of hidden code that could send data to servers under CCP control. President Donald Trump defends his plan for U.S. takeover of Gaza. Trump taking to Truth Social today to say Israel will turn over the Gaza Strip once the fighting is over and the Palestinians will have already been resettled to safer communities in the region. The president adds the Palestinian people would actually have a chance to be happy, safe, and free. Trump then goes on to tout his proposal to make Gaza into one of the greatest and most spectacular developments on earth. He assures no American troops would be needed and the stability in the region would reign. Trump's remarks come amid pushback from many partners in the area, including Saudi Arabia, which insists on the creation of a Palestinian state.
Our goal for USAID was to align the programs that it fulfills with the foreign policy of the United States. What would be a gift to our geopolitical rivals is billions of dollars in foreign aid that is not aligned to the national interest and the foreign policy of the United States.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio defends President Trump's decision to restructure U.S. aid. During a press conference in Guatemala on Wednesday, Rubio said aid staffers could not justify their budgets or programs. Rubio also weighed in on President Trump's plans to take over Gaza, which he announced during a meeting with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Gaza has been severely damaged. If you look at the aerial imagery, you see what's happening. The billions of dollars that are going to be required for reconstruction are enormous. Some areas have been rendered unlivable now and for the foreseeable future. And so what President Trump announced yesterday is the offer, the willingness of the United States to become responsible for the reconstruction of that area. And while you are rebuilding, while you're clearing debris, by the way, there are unexploded munitions. There are all kinds of Hamas weaponry still buried underground. For people to be able to live in a place safely, all of that has to be removed. It's an enormous undertaking.
Rubio stressed America's rebuilding efforts in Gaza would be temporary, despite Trump hinting at long-term control of the area. He also inked a deal with Guatemala's leaders to take in illegal immigrants being deported from the U.S. Here's more.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio is carrying the America First foreign policy torch. On Wednesday, Rubio continued his South America tour in Guatemala, where the country's president, Bernardo Arevalo, promised to take in illegal immigrants shipped from the U.S., even those who aren't Guatemala nationals. Any non-Guatemalan migrants would be returned to their home countries on American taxpayers' dime. Rubio touted Arevalo's commitment to helping the Trump administration's deportation operations, adding he's following the leaders of Panama and El Salvador.
The president who's made the offer today, then we'll be working on the details of all of this, but the offer to increase these flights and these deportations by 40%. It's very important for us in terms of the migratory situation that we're facing. His willingness to accept not just nationals, but those from other nationalities as they seek to ultimately return to their own homelands is also important.
America's top diplomat also vowed to tackle the root causes of emigration from Guatemala, focusing on drug cartel activity. He warns the violence and drug deaths plaguing the country ends up spilling over into the U.S.
Tragically, Guatemala, because of its geography, has been a place of transshipment of drugs. One time it was through small little airplanes that landed in clandestine fields. One time it was 70, 80 flights a year. Now it was last year, I think there was one. And we hope this year it'll be zero. And that's thanks to the dedication that the authorities here have placed in shutting that down.
Rubio also said along with the cartel crackdown, the Trump administration aims to build up Guatemala to be a great place for its citizens to live.
Today I've signed a letter of support pledging the full cooperation of the State Department on a very specific project, which is the partnership between the government of Guatemala and the Army Corps of Engineers in the United States to begin preliminary planning for the expansion of not one but two new port facilities, and in addition to that, the opportunity to do the interconnections through highways and railroads so that Guatemala can become an economic hub of trade and commerce, creating even more opportunity for the people of the region and of Guatemala.
Rubio is expected to conclude his first official foreign trip Thursday and is expected to hash out immigration policies with leaders of the Dominican Republic.
Well, Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he will not attend the G20 summit this year. In an ex-post Wednesday, Rubio says South Africa is suing the summit to promote, quote, solidarity, equality, and sustainability, which he said is DEI dressed up as so-called climate change. This comes as President Trump recently claimed South Africa's government as confiscating land from its own citizens without compensation. The secretary explained that his job is to advance American values on the world stage, not waste taxpayer dollars to promote anti-American ideas. Still to come on One American News, Elon Musk's Doge continues rooting out wasteful spending in the U.S. government. How much federal agencies were spending on Politico subscriptions. And mayors of so-called sanctuary cities are called to testify before the House Oversight Committee, whose attendance has been confirmed.
You work hard, You deserve a bank that will go to work for you. Build your credit the right way with no credit check, no annual fee. The secured Visa credit card from GoToBank, the mobile bank that works for you. Open an account at gotobank.com.
We planned well for retirement, but I wish we had more cash.
Do you think those two have any idea that they can sell their life insurance policy for cash, so they're basically sitting on a gold mine? I don't think they have a clue. That's crazy. Well, not everyone knows Coventry has helped thousands of people sell their policies for cash, even term policies. I can't believe they're just sitting up there, sitting on all this cash.
If you own a life insurance policy of $100,000 or more, you can sell all or part of it to Coventry, even a term policy, for cash or a combination of cash and coverage with no future premiums.
Someone needs to tell them that they're sitting on a gold mine and you have no idea. Hey guys, you're sitting on a gold mine. Come on.
Do you hear that?
I don't hear anything anymore.
Find out if you're sitting on a gold mine. Call Coventry Direct today at 800-513-6400 or visit coventrydirect.com.
Hi, I'm Cade Courtley, and welcome to the Ford Patriots Buy One, Get One Solar Generator event. Claim the Patriot Power Generator 2000X, and you'll get a free Patriot Power Sidekick with 2 free solar panels. These are 2 of Ford Patriot's silent, fume-free solar generators that can power your fridge, TV, and critical devices without ever needing gas. Every American should have the peace of mind that comes from having backup power. Visit FordPatriots.com to secure your free generator and solar panels now.
Do you have a box of videotapes, film reels, or photos that are degrading? Legacy Box professionally converts them to DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe, with over 1 million satisfied customers. Visit LegacyBox.com today and get 50% off.
Trump hosts Texas Governor Greg Abbott at the White House for talks on border security. Speaking to reporters following the Oval Office meeting Wednesday, Abbott noted he and the president spoke about how illegal immigration is down to a mere trickle in Texas. The governor also said he let Trump know Texas has completed more than 50 miles of border wall, plans to build 20 more, and has acquired more than 100 miles of easement. Abbott is making the wall along the other state facilities available to the Trump administration.
Texas built 2 military bases that can house 2,000 soldiers in one base, 400 soldiers in another base. I made sure the president knew that was available to him. I let the president know that we have identified 4,000 jail cells in the state of Texas that can be used as detention facilities. So we're just continuing to find ways we can assist the Trump administration in finally securing our border.
Abbott also said he will be back in D.C. next week to lobby for federal reimbursement for the state's border security efforts under Operation Lone Star. Well, 4 Democrat mayors are set to testify before the House Oversight Committee on the impact of so-called sanctuary cities. According to Chairman James Comer on Wednesday, the witnesses for the hearing will include New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Boston's Michelle Wu, Chicago's Brandon Johnson, and Denver's Mike Johnston. Adams has been the most sympathetic to Trump's America First approach to border security and immigration. He drew ire from Democrats for drawing attention to the illegal immigrant crime problem plaguing the Big Apple. The House hearing is set for March 5th. Attorney General Pam Bondi hits the ground running, instituting major policies on her first day on the job. On Wednesday, Bondi moved to terminate the moratorium on seeking the death penalty imposed by the Biden administration. She's also doing the work with DHS to eliminate the threat of foreign cartels and criminal gangs, and will pause all federal funding for so-called sanctuary states and cities. Bondi is also going to establish a weaponization working group, which would investigate any law enforcement official and agency which weaponize the justice system for political purposes. Meanwhile, President Trump touts Pam Bondi's past achievements and promises she will be great as the new Attorney General. Here is more on her swearing in.
As a prosecutor, she locked up drug dealers and gang members and human traffickers and was waging war all the time on the pill mills, they called them, that fueled the deadly opioid crisis. And she did better than anybody else. There was nobody like her.
Pam Bondi officially becomes the U.S. Attorney General.
I do solemnly swear
I, Pamela Bondi, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Wednesday morning in the Oval Office, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas administered the oath of office to the nation's top law enforcement officer. President Trump expressed pride in his ability to nominate her, saying he knows her well.
The role of Attorney General comes with immense responsibility, but I have absolute confidence that Pam will fulfill her duties with honor and courage and strength and fairness. She's going to be fair. She's going to be very fair.
Bondi was confirmed Tuesday in a 54-46 vote, with Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman voting with Republicans. At her ceremony, Bondi said she's truly honored to take on the role. She promised to make America safe again.
I will restore integrity to the Justice Department, and I will fight violent crime throughout this country and throughout this world and make America safe again. Thank you.
Trump predicts Bondi will go down as one of the best and most consequential AGs in the history of our country.
Well, President Donald Trump's Department of Government Efficiency announces multiple agencies cutting left-wing news outlet subscriptions, which officials say were costing the taxpayer millions of dollars. In a series of posts to X on Wednesday, the advisory board headed by Elon Musk reported NASA is canceling subscriptions to Politico and the Treasury Department is scrapping subscriptions to the New York Times, among others. This comes amid reports various agencies across the federal government spent just over $8 million on Politico subscriptions last year. Lawyers for the DOJ agreed to restrict Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency from having access to Treasury Department payment system information. Lawyers for the department submitted the court filing Wednesday. This means only 2 Treasury Department employees affiliated with Doge will have read-only access to the system. The move is in response to the lawsuit claiming Musk's team was given unlawful access to federal employee private information. The deal needs judicial approval and would remain in place until February 24th, when both sides can make arguments. The Committee on Oversight and Government Reform works with Doge to improve government efficiency by eliminating wasteful spending. Here's more.
The House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform holds a hearing on right-sizing government. During Wednesday's hearing, the president of the Citizens Against Government Waste, Thomas A. Schatz, said that Doge should plan to adopt policies to spend taxpayer dollars effectively and deliver government services efficiently. He adds, making the government more efficient is something that all members of Congress should agree on.
Right-sizing government is an objective on which all members of Congress should agree. It requires constant vigilance and oversight to determine if federal tax dollars are being spent in the most effective and efficient manner and achieving intended objectives. Increased efficiency will go a long way to restore the public's confidence in the ability of the federal government to avoid as much waste, fraud, abuse, and mismanagement as possible.
Committee Chairman James Comer said that the hardworking taxpayers across the country expect their government to work more effectively, but the federal bureaucracy has increased to an unmanageable size.
We'll explore how we can make the federal government work better for all Americans. President Trump promised he would eliminate Washington waste and reform the unchecked federal bureaucracy, and he is delivering on his promise made to the American people. President Trump created the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, to conduct a government-wide audit to root out waste, fraud, and abuse and ensure we protect taxpayer dollars.
Comer mentions that the committee is determined to facilitate government reforms to safeguard taxpayer funds. He added that the American people gave Congress the mandate to carry out these reforms.
But when it gets to making cuts, that's tough. That's what people in the private sector have to do every day. That's what people who work and pay taxes and struggle to make ends meet have to do every day. They have to make tough financial decisions.
He said that the idea is to work with Doge and the Trump administration, making the government more efficient by ending duplicate services and reducing wasteful spending.
Well, at least 100 EPA Environmental Justice and Civil Rights Office employees are expected to be placed on leave. The change could take place as early as today. This is the result of one of Trump's executive orders directed toward ending DEI initiatives within the federal government. These departments are not the only ones that could be impacted. Employees placed on administrative leave will still receive a salary and benefits. Federal agencies are only allowed to place workers on administrative leave for 10 days in a calendar year, and it is unclear what will happen to these employees after that time period. Wisconsin Representative Mark Pocan introduces a bill named after Elon Musk. On Wednesday, he introduced the Elon Musk Act, which looks to ban special government employees from having a federal contract. Pocan claimed Musk is incapable of being objective as the head of Doge due to SpaceX and Starlink holding contracts with the federal government. He added government employees should, quote, not have any financial interest in who the government does business with. The Education and Workforce Committee examines the state of American education. Here's One America's Cameron Walker.
The Committee on Education and Workforce go back and forth over the nation's education system. During a hearing Wednesday, the committee discussed the state of the education system from preschool to law school. Chairman Tim Walberg said many students are failing to succeed with the necessary skills such as math or literature. The chairman added, a large reason for this has been the growth of ideologies such as DEI that have been funded by the government.
In 2024, researchers with Parents Defending Education found that Biden-Harris administration spent over $1 billion in DEI grants. Turning to higher education, we've seen rampant anti-Semitism and stifling of speech on campuses, fueled by bloated DEI bureaucracies. And America's adversaries are sending billions of foreign funds to schools to manipulate them. All of this has resulted in too many students being told what to think instead of how to think.
Virginia Representative Bobby Scott turned the attention to President Donald Trump's administration and their future plans for education. The congressman said some of their plans sound similar to Project 2025.
I'd like to first start with the elephant in the room, and there is current reporting that President Trump plans to issue an executive order to eliminate critical programs at the Department of Education and call on Congress to eliminate the entire department. But then I'd recall that that's exactly what the Project 2025 said the president should do, said that on page 319 of Project 2025. The irony is not lost on me that we're here to discuss the state of American education while current administration is actively discussing how to dismantle the main federal agency responsible for ensuring safe, quality education for all students.
An advocate for the education system said some schools have their priorities wrong, funding programs that don't benefit anyone.
The Diversity Industrial Complex promotes programs like this, conducting equity audits and hosting professional development trainings. Districts pay DEI consultants millions per year, incentivized by the $1 billion in education grants awarded by the Biden administration over the past 4 years. In the wake of October 7th, anti-Semitism spiked in colleges and K-12 schools alike. From lesson plans about settler colonialism to swastikas on mirrors dismissed as Buddhist religious symbols, districts' lackadaisical response to Jew hatred bore a sharp contrast to the anti-racism fervor following George Floyd's murder. Foreign funding remains problematic. Our investigation into Confucius classrooms found districts around the country with ties to CCP-linked entities, and similar program by the Qatar Foundation also exists.
While some members of the committee continued to try and link the president to Project 2025, others showed support for Trump for cracking down on the unnecessary funds. Cameron Walker, One American News.
Well, government watchdog Judicial Watch files a lawsuit against the DHS and DOD. The FOIA lawsuit filed Wednesday requests records of former Vice President Kamala Harris's use of government funds for security and other services while traveling. According to Judicial Watch, during Harris's time in office, she made 17 foreign trips to 21 countries and met with over 150 world leaders, yet there's no record of who accompanied her. Judicial Watch said the Biden administration hid information on the VP's whereabouts to benefit her presidential campaign. Well, House GOP lawmakers say a budget cut resolution is needed soon. Texas Representative Chip Roy spoke with reporters on Capitol Hill Wednesday addressing the reconciliation process. Roy said Congress has had long discussions about tax policies and figuring out exact timing of tax cuts and what the numbers would be. The representative added, if Congress can come to an agreement on a number, good things are to come.
That's the rub, right? Is figuring that out. And, I've said, we had a general agreement that was widely reported in December of $2.5 trillion over 10, which is $250 billion a year in spending restraint. I think if we can do that, then we'd have a real good shot at being able to unlock all this and move forward. But we got to have a serious sense of resolve on spending.
Roy says the U.S. either needs to focus on spending restraint or take a closer look at tax policy. Still to come on One America News, Maersk reports high Q4 earnings. More on the latest numbers. And the Bank of England is cutting interest rates after contracting in the fourth quarter. Its DEI programs for possible elimination. That's according to an email sent to employees Wednesday, which was first reported on by the Wall Street Journal. Google says the changes are required due to their federal contracts amid recent court decisions and executive orders on this topic. This makes Google the latest business to drop DEI and diversity programs after similar moves by Meta and Walmart. While shipping company Maersk reports strong fourth quarter earnings. Here's Sierra Lee.
Shipping giant Maersk is often viewed as a barometer of world trade, and on Thursday it reported fourth quarter earnings above forecasts. Maersk also expects to grow its business to track an expected 4% growth in container shipping this year. That's even as profits are set to decline and Trump's tariff threats create uncertainty. The Danish company's underlying earnings before interest, tax and depreciation rose to $3.6 billion in the fourth quarter, but geopolitical developments, including President Trump's threats to impose tariffs on the top U.S. trading partners and access the Red Sea shipping route, could impact Maersk's revenues. Maersk said it expects an underlying earnings result of between $6 and $9 billion this year. That's compared with over $12 billion achieved last year. The company said the wide forecast range hinged on the situation in the Red Sea. It's been avoided by Maersk for over a year due to attacks by militants. Maersk and rivals have benefited from longer sailing times and soaring freight rates as ships are rerouted around Africa.
Well, the U.S. Open is set to become the first major to offer exemptions to LIV Golf players. The USA made the announcement Wednesday. The organization will offer one spot to the highest-ranked player in the top 3 of the LIV Golf individual standing as of May 19th. That is if the player is not already exempt for the U.S. Open in June at the Oakmount Country Club. The USGA chief championship officer says this is to give those playing their best the opportunity to compete in the national championship. In 2026, 2 spots will be allocated. From struggles at Samsung to conflicting fortunes for Microsoft and Meta, Trevor Cole has this week's top stories in developing tech.
From Sam Altman's travels to some very different takes on DeepSeek, this is AI Weekly. OpenAI chief Sam Altman hit the road for a whirlwind tour of Asia. In Tokyo, a deal was announced with Japanese investment giant SoftBank to offer AI services to corporate customers. Then it was on to South Korea for another deal. Altman said OpenAI would provide its tech to KakaoTalk, the country's dominant messaging app.
We are particularly interested in AI and messaging. I think there's a really rich thing to explore there that can improve the experience a lot for users.
Altman also said South Korean firms would play a big role in Stargate, the new U.S. project meant to create massive AI data centers. On a stop in India, Altman discussed the country's plan of creating a low-cost AI ecosystem with the IT minister. Sources say Altman also plans to visit the United Arab Emirates to discuss raising funds with an Abu Dhabi investment group. Chinese firms are rushing to embrace DeepSeek, the AI app that claims to match U.S. rivals at a fraction of the cost. Among the announcements, Huawei said it was working to make the model available on its cloud service. But the new bot has had a cooler welcome in Europe. Regulators in Italy have blocked the app over data privacy concerns, with watchdogs in France, Ireland, and the Netherlands also taking a very close look. Samsung continues to struggle. The South Korean giant warned of slow sales for its AI chips amid U.S. export restrictions on China. It's also still lagging local rival SK Hynix in supplying high-end chips to U.S. AI champion NVIDIA. And there were conflicting fortunes for Microsoft and Meta. The Windows maker saw shares plunge after big bets on AI failed to drive equally big gains in revenue for its cloud computing business. But shares soared at Meta after a jump in revenue eased fears over its huge spending on the technology. One analyst said the Facebook firm might have more to show for its AI investment than any big rival.
The Bank of England is slashing interest rates after underperforming growth expectations. Here's Francis McGuire.
The Bank of England cut interest rates on Thursday. The quarter percentage point reduction to 4.5% was in line with expectations. But investors were surprised by two officials who unexpectedly voted for an outsized rate cut. One analyst said their decision may reflect worries some policymakers have about the headwinds to growth. Governor Andrew Bailey said the central bank would monitor the UK economy and global developments closely.
This will be welcome news to many, and we expect to be able to cut bank rate further as the disinflation process continues. But we will have to judge, meeting by meeting, how far and how fast.
He added they would take a gradual and careful approach to reducing rates further. The British economy has barely grown since midway through last year. It's been hit by rising costs, worries about Finance Minister Rachel Reeves's tax increases for employers, and the risk of a global trade war led by US President Donald Trump. The Bank of England warned the economy likely contracted by 0.1% in the fourth quarter. Thursday's rate cut is only the third since the bank started lowering borrowing costs from a 14-year high in August. It leaves British rates among the highest for advanced economies. In a sign of concern about the future, the central bank halved its growth outlook for this year to 0.75%. It reflected weak business and consumer sentiment and slower productivity growth.
New stamps celebrating 50 years since AC/DC made their debut album are released. On Wednesday, the Royal Mail unveiled the stamps commemorating the band's album, High Voltage, which was released in 1975. This 8-stamp series will show images from groups' live performances, which the organization says will highlight the, quote, electrifying aspects of their performances. 4 other stamps will also be released, showing the album's cover alongside Back in Black. Highway to Hell and the Power Up. The stamps will go on sale on February 18th. And that does it for me for this hour of One American News. Thanks so much for watching. Alicia Summers takes it from here.
All right, Stella, thank you. Coming up on this hour of One American News, Attorney General Pam Bondi wastes no time in seeking to bring so-called sanctuary cities to justice. The first the major urban hub called to answer for its suspected obstruction policies. Plus, President Trump speaks about the deadly D.C. plane collision, what he says contributed to the incident. And Democrats continue to slam Elon Musk's role in the Trump administration, with the party, which didn't hold a presidential primary in 2024, is saying about unelected billionaires. Today's Thursday, February 6th. This edition of One American News starts right now.